is this guy, and he sort of says that innovation happens in an S-curve. So if you look at 2 releases, it looked like this. If you look at 4 releases, it looked like this. But if you actually start to look at more releases, according to him, it's actually, you know, looking more like this. And so there is this, you know, steep growth of reach and adoption. And it's something which has been repeating in many different industries. And I'll give credit to Simon Wardley here for, you know, coming up with this, with these analogies. So effectively, if you look at electricity, this guy, Wollaston, he performed some very important work on electricity, work that paved the path for like sort of the first electric motors, right? And this was just an innovation. And that evolved into sort of bespoke systems, like the Hippolyte Pixie, as you can see here, which is sort of an electrical generator. And so over the years, those bespoke systems transformed into products, like a dynamo, and then eventually they transformed into, they're being commoditized, or they're becoming utility services, like the electricity grid. And so electricity is a good example of something that transformed from an innovation to a service over the years. And the same thing happened with computers, for example. You know, we started with, you know, something like the Z3 in 1941 that transferred to a bespoke system like the Leo, eventually to products like, you know, this IBM machine, and I think ultimately what we're getting at is sort of cloud computing, which is, you know, hardware as a service. And so another way to look at this is actually to look at it at this graph. You see innovation, you know, bespoke systems, products, and services move up this graph, and this is how a lot of technologies evolve. Not all technologies, but many of them. And so it's probably fair to say that Drupal will also follow a similar fate, potentially. And a good example is CRM systems. So initially they started as like databases, raw databases, then evolved to like downloadable CRM products, and now things like Salesforce, which are hosted versions of a CRM. And I think looking at Drupal, I think Drupal is sort of there. I mean, a lot of people use Drupal as a framework to build bespoke systems, like custom sites, but other people are using Drupal as a product. They download Drupal and they build a site with it without having to do any custom work. And so I think Drupal 7 will actually encourage that. I mean, I think it's going to be a better release and will help us move up that chart a little bit. We have better APIs, we have better usability, making it a better product and things like that. Plus, what you can see, I think, is, you know, you have those distributions starting to emerge, like, you know, Open Atrium, Drupal for Education, things like that, which are effectively taking Drupal and making them more into products and providing some specialization and focus to Drupal. And I think, you know, Buzzer, but also Acquia Gardens are examples of, you know, offering Drupal as a service. So I think it's a natural evolution, just like for these other technologies. It might also be a very natural evolution for Drupal to go that way. And it's something I really like and want to promote. And this is a little mental model of the Drupal ecosystem. It's a lot of Drupal shops sort of start at the bottom and then make their way up. And as they reach a threshold, they seem to be eager to start doing products. I think that's a great thing. It's something which we actively have to encourage. You know, things like Pressflow, things like Open Atrium, I think they're very helpful. Also a little bit scary because in a way they might be perceived as forks. But ultimately, I think it's a good thing for Drupal. And so I think that evolution actually gives us a big opportunity to go from linear growth to sort of exponential growth, because, you know, this is our current growth. So how can we accelerate that? I think part of the solution is products and services being developed on Drupal. So one way to go about that is, you know, encourage more distributions, which I think is something which makes a lot of sense for Drupal 8. Install profiles as modules, which we have in core, combined with a plugin manager could also be something which is, you know, very hot. could also make a big difference, which is why we would still like to see plugin manager into core, because we already have installed profiles as modules. Features is another way to go about this. And one of the things I would like to do this week is talk to different people, different opinions about what's better than the other, to sort of figure out where exactly we need to go on this. Second. So, another way to look at this is projects, organizations that are truly successful, they're sort of there. You want to have a lot of reach and a lot of richness in the product. If you look at WordPress, for example, I think they have a lot of reach. They also have richness, but maybe not as much richness as Joomla or Drupal. I think Drupal wins because we do have more richness in the platform, but we don't have the same reach as WordPress has. And so you can draw this little graph, if you will. But then if you take it up a level and you generalize this, you probably get a picture like this, right? Where services have the potential of reaching the most people, products have the potential of reaching a slightly smaller group, and frameworks probably reach the least people, because they're typically used to build bespoke systems, if you will. And so when people ask me the question, should Drupal be a framework or a product? I've always felt that frameworks are nice, but they will never give us the reach. And that's not to say frameworks are unimportant. I do think Drupal has to be a great framework, but I also think that it has to be a great product. So it's not about being one or the other. And ever since 2004, it's been saying that Drupal is both a framework and a product. And still today, I believe that's our best course to grow and win. I think actually it's part of the natural evolution of many other technologies. And so for me, for Drupal 8, I would like to see Drupal evolve as a better framework, and I would like to see Drupal evolve as a better product as well. And in fact, what I would like to do, and I don't have the answers, but I would like to make the distinction maybe a little bit more clear. I've been thinking about maybe renaming the includes directory to framework, and making it possible to just take a framework directory and build stuff with that, right? And just maybe even just renaming includes to framework will encourage people to think slightly differently about it, and to reorganize a few things there. And similarly, I think keeping investing in Drupal 7 usability or usability in general is pretty important. The other reason I really like to be both is because it's a great way to eat our own dog food. It's building a product on our framework is one of the best things we can do. At least for me, that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned about Drupal is always trying to eat your own dog food. And also I think it actually provides us an interesting differentiator compared to many other systems. Like we're different from frameworks, from traditional frameworks, because we're also a product, and we're different from many other products because we're also a framework, and it actually gives us a sweet spot. A sweet spot actually which allows us to rapidly deploy Drupal sites. I mean, we can build a site and go from nothing to a production site in days, which I don't think you can do with most frameworks. It's still a matter of weeks. And similarly, if you have a complex site with a tool, you can also not go from nothing to a production-ready website in a few days. And it's just this combination of being a framework and a product and having a tight relationship, which I think is actually key for us.